Right. Okay. We now got as far as auto suggestion in the faith section and also the imagination. So making practical use of our imagination. So how would you go about making practical use of our imagination, Ben? How
Take
would you
action.
go about explaining that in greater detail?
Take action uh, is what it always boils down to. Zig Ziglar used to tell a great story about going to a neighbor's house where the maid always fixed biscuits. And the biscuits were light and fluffy, about this thick. And then she put this wonderful gravy on them. And one day he went to the house and the maid brought forth the biscuits and they were, he said, about like a silver dollar thick. And he said, whatever her name was, I forget, I used to know it. What happened to the biscuits? She said, well, Mr. Zig, they squatted to rise and they got cooked in the squat. They never rose. And he would go on to say that that's the way people do. They get ready to go, but they don't go. I was asked one time uh, at a seminar, what were the three most important things Dr. Hill taught you? And I said, integrity in all things, especially when no one's watching. Sometimes we're on this because we have to be. Integrity in all things, focus, get your imagination under control and lined up, focus. And then he always ended with action. Take action. We bonded on the concept of I am. That was our first click where we knew we were probably meant to be together. And then at our first lunch together, he slipped up, and rarely did he do this, but he quoted from the book. He said, Ben, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And I'll never forget it, Mo. He was picking up salad. It was on his fork, almost to his mouth. And I said, unless he's crazy. And he froze because I guess people didn't normally challenge Dr. Hill, especially with our age difference. He was 84, I was 25 when we met. Biologically, he could have been my great grandfather. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I know lots of people who believe things that aren't going to happen. I mean, they're just not going to happen for various reasons. Among them, they're crazy. And so we thought about it and debated back and forth in a friendly manner to the point that he agreed, Ben, if I ever rewrite Think and Grow Rich, I'm going to put whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve, ... unless he's crazy. And then that led us into goals, lifestyle, whatever, even in your imagination, should be specific. I want to be rich is not a goal. Specific. I want $1,400,000 or pounds or whatever in the bank. That's specific. Measurable. That example is also measurable. We know how much and how, and quick. How fast do you want it? By such and such a date. And then the tricky one that throws all people off is when I say attainable, specific, measurable, attainable. Well, attainable, that puts limits on you and so on. No, it prevents you from slipping over into delusion. There are certain things that I don't care how strong you believe and how strong your I am is, the things just aren't going to happen. No one listening to this video who doesn't have a clue about how they're going to do it right now, doesn't have a plan in action, 7 days from today is going to have an extra $1 million because of their new idea. You might inherit it, but from your new idea, not one person. It's specific, it's measurable, but it's not attainable. I worked with the astronauts. One of my goals was to be an astronaut. So I sat down with Jim Irwin, commander of Apollo 15, and we started going through it. He said, tell me about your education. I said, well, I'm a high school graduate. He said, any college? I said, yeah, 3 weeks. No, therefore, no science, no this, none. Uh, are you a pilot? No, I'm not. Well, today that's not as important as it used to be because you're more of a passenger. But back then, the astronauts were by and large hot shot test pilots because when things went wrong, you had to land that thing anyway or get it under control anyway. Neil Armstrong saved Apollo 11 from certain death and destruction on the moon by overriding all the automatic stuff and landing it by hand. So being a pilot would have been handy. So I gradually, he wasn't trying to depress me, but gradually I realized that being an astronaut, probably at my age and what I could do it if I wanted to devote the rest of my life to going to college, getting a degree, becoming a test pilot. But is that really what I wanted? And was it attainable at the end? Probably not. I took it off my list. And then it reappeared when the Soviets, Russia, began taking people up who paid for their seat. 26, I think the first time I read it was $26 million. They would put you through a little astronaut training or cosmonaut training so you wouldn't break anything during the trip and send you up for 26 million. Well, then I went to Gigi and I said, let's just talk. Let's say we had an extra 26 million lying around. I could now be an astronaut. I could buy a ticket on the Russian shot. What do you think? She said, not a remote chance. And if you did it when you got back, I wouldn't be here. So attainable got scratched off. And I was once again an earthbound astronaut wannabe. So specific, measurable, attainable, and attainable doesn't mean being negative. It means just you be enthusiastic, reach for the stars, etc., but don't slip off into delusion.
Excellent, excellent. I think I'm just going to share a story here, one of Tony Robbins' story about visualization and imagination, how powerful they are. In his earlier days, Tony had access to one of the military's sharpshooter officers. I think the 5-star general who run this particular program within a certain part of the military. And they trained all the top shooters in the country. And Tony Robbins went to see this general and said, like, I want to help your people. Tell me what your success rate is at the moment of the people that you put into the program, and tell me how long it takes to qualify a sharpshooter, and I will see what I can do. So the typical scenario was for every 100 people that put into the program, like 60 would pass, and the other 40 would fail. So that was money that was spent on the 40 that didn't fail. So they weren't making full use of that. Secondly, the sharpshooter program run for 90 days. So he said, okay, what would you do if I could improve on those? I said, look, we've got the best minds here, from everywhere around the world. You can't bring it down less than 90 days. You can't improve more than like 60%. And he said, what if I could? No, you can't. We've already done this. You're a nobody compared to this. So anyway, he kept going back,
We would have already done it.
So he kept going back. The general eventually said, look, I'll give you a small sample of a group of people that, are going to enroll, and you go and, do what you need to, and then see what you can come back. Well, he took this, I can't remember the exact number of samples that they gave him. I can't remember, there's 20 or 40 people, 30 people. He took those people, and in the first week, they never even touched a gun. All he did in that first week was got them sitting in their chairs, imagining they were at the shooting range, holding the gun, how to hold the gun, how to aim, how to breathe, how to, balance, how to be prepared for the shock of, when the gun is fired to, for the suppression. He literally took them step by step by visualization all the way through. And he did this for a whole entire week, day in, day out, programming them through visualization. And come the following week, they went out on the range and they started shooting. And then he started bringing them back again, more visualization, more visualization. I think over a period of 3 weeks, he got in excess of like 80, close on to nearly 90% success rate within a space of 3 weeks, compared to, you know, the 3 months versus the 60%. And he was able to go back. And then towards the end of the program, a couple of the sharpshooters asked him, by the way, Tony, how long have you been a marksman? And he said, I've never held a gun in my life. And, you know, this is a true story, true facts. And really speaking, it's again coming back to what you said, if what the mind perceives, it can achieve. So all Tony did was got them to perceive that in their mind, to perceive it in their head, and they were able to go out there. And there's a similar story of a Japanese prisoner of war who was kept in for, I forget, about 10 years or 6 years or whatever he was captive for, in the jungle. And the guy used to play golf, and every day he would, in his mind, just put himself into visualization mode for 3-4 hours, and he would have a nice round of golf in his mind. And when he came out, he hadn't touched a golf club for X number of years, whatever time he was in there. He went out and he shot his best score ever, all into single-digit handicaps, again through visualization. So again, what the mind can conceive, you know, it can achieve. So it's so important that the visualization, where the visualization doesn't work is when you don't break it down into detail. If you, like Ben said earlier on, you know, if you say I want £1 million, yeah, you know, that means nothing. It's too vague. There's no time scale. There's nothing. You know, you have to say, okay, I want that £1 million in the bank or whatever. And then you've got to put a time limit on that. It's going to be 12 months from now. So reverse engineer the whole of that process back to month by month, and then week by week and day by day, to what are your systems going to be, what are your processes going to be every single day, what steps are you going to follow every single day to get to that sort of process. And it's having to visualize that process all the way through to that fruition. But if you don't sort of break that down, your mind is not, when you're sleeping, you want that mind of yours to be working, to helping you to connect the dots, to come up with the ideas and start putting that into fruition. But unless you break it down for the mind is not going to conceive, and it's going to go, huh. It's like the New Year resolutions. The number of people say, oh, I'm going to lose, you know, 2 stone in the next month. The mind goes, huh. I've heard that before, and nothing happens. But if, on the other hand, you would say, I'm going to lose 2 stone in the next 30 days, for the first 5 days, I'm going to cut down an X number of calories. On top of that, I'm going to, instead of walking 200 yards every day, I'm going to walk 2 miles, and I'm going to drink more water. And you break down what you're going to do, and the mind goes, he's not fooling this time. So the mind's now paying attention. So whatever you're doing to break down those bits and pieces, your mind is going to help you to connect those dots whilst you sleep, whilst you're out there doing things. All of a sudden, you're going to see the dots that were not visible to you in the past because you didn't break down the details to be able to see the bits that connect in with those dots. So the more you can break that down, that visualization, you know, your mind will start to conceive even more and more and start to build that picture far more clearer than you do in the initial stages.
Hitchhiking on what you just said, I taught a class, I think you know it, San Quentin, California's infamous San Quentin State Prison, called People Builders. It was a 12-week course. I taught it for 5 years. We had many people go through it the entire 5 years I was there. Some went through it, graduated, and they went on with their prison life and then ultimately their outside life. But it was 12 weeks minimum to get your certificate and collar pin. And when I got to San Quentin, the recidivism rate, those that get out and come back on a new charge, was 67% within 2 years. 2/3 of all the people who got out came back within 2 years. And so we would teach the concepts of people builders, which was get out of prison, stay out of prison. How did you get in prison? Don't do that anymore. How do you stay out of prison? How do you do that? And begin visualizing and so on. After we had enough graduated classes to begin to get statistics, we discovered, Red Nelson, the warden, showed me, the recidivism rate of the prisoners in general, in the general population, remained at about 67%. The people who graduated from people builders had a 5% recidivism rate, a little less than 5% actually. And among the techniques, and some of my human behavioral scientist friends will say you're simplifying things. Maybe so, but it worked for 5 years and continues to work to this day under different names with different people. We, at some point in every class, 5th week, 6th week, 7th week, I would feel where the class was. I would interrupt the class in the middle of the session. Everybody would walk out into the yard right outside the classroom, and there we're surrounded, or at least on two sides you could see, by the tall tan walls of San Quentin, which made it a maximum security prison. They weren't playing around at San Quentin. And I would have whatever number of people, 100, 200 people, if I thought they were ready. I said, now what I want you to do is mentally take your hearts, your minds, your souls, and I want you to throw them over that wall. I want you to free yourself. It was an I am. I am a free man. I am functioning society. I am law abiding. I am, whatever. But literally throw your hearts, minds, and souls over that wall. The fact they physically have you tied up here for a while is interesting, but that's not you. You have left the building. And I think that was a major contributor. Many people who were friends of mine to this day who were in those classes tell me that that was the turning point. They took their I am, they made it specific, measurable, attainable, and then they claimed it by mentally leaving the prison before the paperwork caught up with them. And when it caught up with them, 5% recidivism rate instead of 67%. It works, folks. It really, really works. Can't explain it. Seems simple to me, but it works. I've seen it work all over the world in all aspects of life. And it always comes back down, reverse engineer it, as Moe Nawaz is saying, reverse it, engineer it down to its core. It's really quite simple. It's just a series of good habits repeated day after day after day. And like a snowpack, it builds up and you win.
Excellent, excellent. Right, guys, I'm going to leave you with a task as we come to the end of chapter 2. Now, what I would like for you to do as an exercise for yourselves is imagine you had $1 million, whether it's $1 million, £1 million, or whatever your currency is, wherever you are. Imagine that you had $1 million in the bank and you had your own business or whatever it is that your end desire was that you've managed to achieve. Tell me, now I want you in this video, put down, how would you behave? What sort of a house would you be living in? What sort of a car would you be driving? What would your family look like? What sort of size of each room would be? What locality would your house be in? What neighborhood? Which country? The more you try and break down, and at the same time, if it's a business, who are going to be your chief operating officers around you? Who is going to be your financial officer around you? Who's going to be your CEO? Who's going to be your chairman? Who are the people that will be around you to help you to take that 1 million to 5 million to 3 million to 7 million to 10 million? Now, who would those people be? Your board of directors, your colleagues that you're going to bring around to help you take your business or your personal self to the next level. How would you engage in those people? what sort of character would they be? What sort of age would they be? What gender would they be? What nationality would they be? Would they married people? Would they be single people? Would they be people with children? Why would they need to be married? Why would they need to be people with children? Are they more stable because they're married and they've got children? Or are you looking for people to join your board who are single people who can put in more time and more effort, who aren't committed? So what sort of people are you going to be surrounded by? What sort of environment are you going to be surrounded by when you go home? So, with that million in the bank, start to visualize, start to plan, start putting pen to paper and start breaking down, like, what would you do? How would you behave? What are the sort of people that you'd be mixing with? What sort of sports would you be playing compared to what you're playing today? What sort of drinks would you be drinking compared to what you drink today? What sort of food would you be eating that you don't eat today? What sort of places would you be going on holidays that you don't go on holidays today? What other skill sets would you be looking to acquire in order to elevate yourself to that sort of next level? So start putting down, start visualizing, put it on a storyboard, put it on a picture board, put it on whatever it takes. Now, before we wind down, I'm going to get Ben to explain how Ben, at the age of 26, I believe it was, when he became chairman for Holiday Magic, who Zig Ziglar was working for, Napoleon Hill, and a whole array of other famous names that Ben is going to share with you. That is, sharing with you the gold nuggets as to why you should listen to what Ben says. Hang on to every word that Ben is sharing with you as a gold nugget, because he has knowledge and a mind that people would kill to spend time with. And Ben is sharing all that information with you because he wants you to benefit from this. I want you to benefit from this. We want you to benefit from this. We want to get you to the next level, but you can only do that if you pay attention to what Ben has to say, what I have to say, what we have to say. We're not just wasting our time because we've got nothing else better to do. We want to leave a legacy behind where people will benefit, from our experience, our knowledge, what we're sharing with you. So Ben, would you mind sharing that and elaborating on that a little bit more, on how you became chairman of Holiday Magic and the people that work for you?
Yeah, it was, sometimes when I'm asked questions like that, Mo, I feel, I'm going to let them down now, because it's not like, and then I walked around this building, I saw a burning bush, and it all became clear to me. It didn't happen that way. I wanted to make more money to put my first wife through nursing school. That was the reason I started looking in the newspapers for a job. And then I quickly discovered I wasn't qualified to do anything. I was a high school graduate, didn't know how to type. Boys didn't get to type in those days. So my skill sets were very limited. And just as I was about to throw the newspaper in the trash can, it was September 15th, 1965, I saw the next section, business opportunities. Opportunity sounded exciting. I didn't know what a business opportunity was, but so I decided to read a couple of more. And the next one I read said, if you know anything about marketing plans and want to make more money, dial this number. So I dialed the number, and it was like putting the launch code. It was in a payphone booth, but it was like when I dialed the number, it was like putting the launch code in a rocket ship. It took off, because it sent me to an opportunity meeting, just three of us, Jimmy Rucker, my running buddy and the greatest salesman I ever worked with, and Zig Ziglar, who'd answered the same ad. So I wasn't terribly bright. When they said, come early, stay late, and work on weekends, I did. When I started to see, there's a longer story I won't bore you with right now, but when I began to see the results of that, that encouraged me. It was positive reinforcement for me. Life started getting better, significantly better, within a few months of that day when I walked into the phone booth. And I saw the results of it, and I began forming systems. I'm not a bright guy, so I've set up systems. This is when you get up. This is what you do when you get up. This is how many calls you make. This is how many people you bring to the meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the way I became president was of the company was I won a year-long sales contest nationwide among all the distributors. Zig came in second. He won a Rolls Royce. I won the mystery prize. The mystery prize, as it turned out, was presidency of the company. And when I went to California to find out what the mystery prize was, and went to lunch with Bill Patrick, William Penn Patrick, I said, and he told me, he said, what I don't understand. I said, I don't understand why it was a mystery prize. He said, because if somebody won it that I didn't like, I would have changed the prize. Maybe given away 2 Rolls Royce, I don't know. And then that brought me into the realm rather quickly of Dr. Napoleon Hill, a gift from Bill Patrick, the first year, second year.
How old was you at the time? How old was you at the time?
25 the day I met Dr. Hill, 23 the day I joined the company. And so coming into his orbit, Dr. Hill's orbit, he tricked me into believing that there was I guess I wasn't very bright. He said, Ben, to move up in the company, you need to replace yourself. Till you replace yourself, you're not going to be able to move up. Well, I wasn't bright enough to figure out I was already acting as the president and soon was the president, and that Bill Patrick, who owned everything, was the chairman of the board. So where was I going to go? There wasn't a place to move up. But he somehow got me to skip over that little bit of logic. And we developed what we came to call my daily success system. It was based on, Ben, you have to replace yourself. You need to get somebody in here really good so you can let this go and move on. What would that guy do if he or she took over your job? What would you want them to do? And he said, be tough on them, be tough. But let's lay out you come in the morning, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you go on the road, you give X number of speeches, etc. Lay out what he or she should do. So we did. We spent the better part of 8 hours designing what the daily success system for this poor chump, this guy I was going to work him to death. And we lined it all out, and we took things off and added them back and everything. And finally said, all right, let's get Marty. Marty Conley was my secretary, and get her to come in here and type this up. So we did. We typed it up, and he said, Marty, leave a line at the top of the list, just a blank line. She said, fine. But it was beneath the line was daily success system. She came back in a while with the list. We proofread it and all. He took his copy, and above that line, he wrote Ben Gay's '*S, daily success system. He spun it around. He said, there you go. That's what you need to do every day from now on. And I said, well, this is for me. He said, yeah. That's the reason I wanted you to make it so tough. So what I do, it's changed over the years, because check your voicemail wasn't on the original list because there was no voicemail. But so things have been added and come off and so on. But I have 10 things that I do that are on a piece of paper, run off in quantity under my desk mat, one of those see-through desk mats. 10 things that I do every day. First thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I go to my handwritten calendar. He got me to get a daily planner and write down and I build my day throughout the month and the year. I just wrote down something today that I can't really put in a calendar until next year at this time, and I don't have that calendar yet. But on the back page of this year's calendar, it already shows me what to write on next year's calendar for that day at 1 o'clock. I'm already beginning to build next year. So I do the 10 things, then I go to the calendar, and the calendar has really important things highlighted in yellow. Being with you today was one of them. When we're done, I'll take my black India marker and I'll cross it out, a feeling of accomplishment. And after you, there's just one thing. I got to finish writing a book. And that'll probably be done today. And when it is, I'll cross it out. If not, I'll move it up. So People say, well, when do you plan tomorrow? I've been planning tomorrow a year from now since yesterday and today again, and reminders and things like that. So I have a daily, I don't have to wonder when I walk in the office, what am I going to do today? Dr. Hill and I decided what I was going to do today 50 years ago. And I follow that system. And here's the real trick to it, Mo. Sometimes, when you're just wandering around doing your job, you do what is easy or what's next or what you're in the mood to do. The daily success system has no place on it, no line or anything that said, how's your mood today? I must do, it's a habit ingrained in me. I must finish today's list on the daily success system before I fold it up for the day, before I go home. And then for tomorrow, I'm always afraid to flash these things for fear it might have some confidential thing on it. But tomorrow is already the 10 I got to do automatically, and it looks like 15 other things. Roughly 15 other things, and I do them. So it's a system. It's not based on my mood. It's not based on if I'm motivated today. The system doesn't care if I'm motivated. It just says do it and don't cross it off until you do it. So it's not exciting. I heard one of our financial gurus on the radio yesterday talking. He's very good at what he does. Dave, somebody, I forget what his name is, talking about becoming a millionaire. For most people, they've surveyed over 10,000 American, I guess, millionaires in this country. How'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And he says, in the whole list of 10,000, there may be two wahoo stories. Something happened, the world exploded, and they got lucky. He said the rest of them just ground it out. They got rid of their debts, paid off their credit card debts, their student loans if they had to. They bought a house as fast as they could and got rid of the mortgage as fast as they could. They put this percent over here and this percent here, rainy day fund, emergency fund, investment, charity. It's all laid out. And so when people say, one of the questions I hate most is somebody calls, well, I haven't talked to in a while, and they say, what are you doing now? And I wish I could come up with something new and exciting to tell them. But what I'm doing now is following the daily success system Dr. Hill helped me develop over 50 years ago.
Excellent. Excellent. Right, guys, listen, we're going to wind down now. End of chapter 2. So please, please, please comment below. Tell us what you think so far. What have you learned so far from chapter 1, chapter 2? If you followed us all the way through, please put some comments below. Tell us what you've learned and how you're implementing what you've learned. We want to hear from you, because when we go to pick the 12 people we're going to mentor for a duration of 12 months, we're going to be looking at the people that are commenting, people that are listening, watching this program and benefiting from it. What we don't want to be doing is taking on people who don't really care, are going to skip through bits, and miss out. So they're not going to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve for them, what we're trying to do to help them. So by the time we get through all these videos, you will have a better understanding of what it is that we're going to be helping you with and how we're going to be able to help you with your sort of situation to get you into the next level, whether you have an existing business or not. It makes no difference. We're going to take you from ground zero or from ground where you are to where you envisage that you want to be. So this is end of chapter 2 for myself, and look forward to going through to chapter 3 with you guys next. Ben, do you want to say anything before we break off?
Whether we remember to tell you or not each session, share these sessions, however it came to you, Facebook, whatever. Share the sessions. Help us build the mastermind group from which we will all benefit. We want to increase the pool. So if you know someone, or there's people in your family, your corporate family, your Facebook family, your LinkedIn family, whatever. If you think there are people who can benefit from this, whether we ask you or not, whether we remind you or not, know that they are all shareable. And that's good for them. It's good for you because it increases the pool. And of course, it's good for us because it increases the pool. So please share, share, share.
You'll find all the videos on YouTube. Just go into YouTube, search for Think and Grow Rich Applied, and you'll find us on there. So you'll find all the videotapes and all the future ones and all the past ones on there. So we'll see you very shortly on chapter 3. Take care now. Thank you.